But I mean, it's the Sharks.
Oh God.
I mean, I know we'll get into it, but the thing that does make sense to me is that Celebrini and Smith both just sort of say, yeah, maybe not this year.
Yeah, I could see that, but I sure would love to see them just both come up. Let's see.
mean, yeah, I don't want to see another Ekman by himself show.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we kind of talked about that 2 weeks ago too, right? Like one way or the other. That's not really what we need at this point. All right. Now
we just have so much cap space coming up if things fall out a certain way.
Oh, you're not ready for GMMG signing spree, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, that actually reminds me why I have the second cat-friendly tab open.
I mean, obviously, we're getting Steven Stamkos.
Like, I've thought about that because. So okay. Well, I'll mention this on the podcast as well. But like, my dream of dreams is Pavs wins the cup with Dallas.
Bring him home.
And yeah, exactly. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to bring the heart back to San Jose. Have you been watching the playoffs, or do you do the
Not
usual?
Not really. I mean, I watched Game 7 of Vegas and Dallas.
Yeah.
I watched Game 1 of Dallas and who are they playing? Edmonton? No, Edmonton's Vancouver. Dallas and
Colorado.
And then I haven't spent a lot of time watching hockey since.
Dallas is like, I'm happy Vegas lost, but Dallas is surprising.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I don't want Pavs to win the cup though. I don't,
because it means Jamie Benn wins.
No, because it means he had to, he left the Sharks and he benefited from it, and I don't want that. I don't want it.
Brings us together, spite.
Yeah, basically. That's powered this podcast for 212 episodes.
That's true.
A podcast powered by spite. Oh, there's that.
But the surprise for me is Edmonton just bringing the filth.
Yeah.
Nothing surprises me. Nothing.
Untrue.
I don't like any of the Western Conference possible outcomes, to be honest.
I'll take a finals with Dallas and anyone else. I won't pull for and the only reason is because I actually, outside of feeling, for me, Dallas was always a rival because they were such a big rival for us in the late 90s, early 2000s. But I will say this: I love Ottinger. I like Robertson. I obviously like Pavelski. Like, I like the players on that team, and I really don't like Edmonton, Vancouver, or the Avs.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't really.
Yeah, I'd prefer the Avs, to be honest, because at least they've won it before and recently. Like,
Dallas has won. Foot in the crease, baby.
Recently.
Foot in the goddamn crease. Let him get a real one this time.
Recently. No, I don't want Pavs to get a cup. He does not deserve to leave the Sharks and get a cup. That's not how this works.
Yeah, but listen, if he gets a cup, one of two things happens. He retires or he becomes a Shark.
Bring him home. You could bring him home even if he doesn't.
No, I think that if he doesn't and he doesn't retire, he's going to want to be. He's going to
play your coach. Bring him home. Play your coach.
Let's not do player coach here. Yeah. Can you drop the thing in the chat? I'll throw it up on the Facebook.
Oh, I suppose.
Yeah, I only just to counter Ben's spite. Like Dallas is the only team I've got any sort of desire to see win because of Pavs. And what's the little shorty's name? Studnicka, I think. Is that the
No,
itty
Stanika's
bitty?
our guy. You're thinking of
No, yeah.
I know who you mean. God damn it.
Freaking little, like the little itty bitty Dallas forward who's lighting it up.
Sir Poopenstein.
Yeah, that's it. You got it.
I nailed it. I always nail it, guys.
Stankoven.
Yes, Stanko.
Wasn't that close? Wasn't that far off, was I, Ben? At the end of the day,
Sorta, yeah. Stank.
Little
Stankoven, Sir Poopenstein.
5'8" buddy.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy Shores is coming back this month or next month. What the fuck is this? Facebook's adding like 50 layers of login. You want to make it harder for me to log in Facebook? I got news for you. I got no problem with that. No problem not logging in.
But otherwise, no. I don't want any other team to really win. I decided I don't want Florida to win because then 100% of Florida teams will have won a cup versus our,
Wait,
66% of California.
I thought Florida's already got a cup. Didn't they get a cup in like
Did they?
Panthers?
Yeah, Panthers like early on.
No, they went to the cup early on with Beezer. Dan Beesbrook is their goalie. I don't think they.
Yeah,
Who knows,
yeah.
dude? Fucking history.
Yeah, they made it.
No one
made
likes
it
history
twice.
stuff.
All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was 1996. They made an appearance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And in
yeah.
2023, they lost to the fucking Knights.
Yeah, which
That's why that's why I can't pull for Florida.
I'm
Sorry,
fine with them
boys.
winning a cup
Get the
because
fuck out.
then, what's his name could come back.
declare.
Yes, declare. I do declare.
Didn't Declare go to Tampa? Didn't Declare go to?
No, he went to the
Tampa?
Panthers, didn't he?
I thought he went to Tampa Bay, didn't he?
I think he went to Tampa.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
did
don't
he
even
come
know.
from the Panthers?
Yeah, he came.
Oh
to
yeah,
us
he's
from the
he's a.
Panthers.
That's what it is. Oh Jesus, God damn it. Yeah, he's on Tampa Bay. Well, he could come back
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, he can.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't mind him at all. But I don't really feel like we need him either. Oh, so save it for the podcast, Alex. I will, guys. Thanks. Hold on. Let me just boot
What would
the
you
old-
say we?
in your head.
What would you say we do need, Alex?
I think we need Mantis Aramas Amaras to come back and be our linguist hit male model Sharks goaltender.
Oh,
You forgot
What?
Mantis. You forgot the supermodel.
You
You forgot the supermodel.
Yeah, I did.
Mantis Armalis. Why don't you go look him up?
Did he ever play
Yes.
for the
Yes.
Sharks themselves?
Yes, he did.
Great.
Preseason, baby. Preseason. First thing that'll pop up is that sexy supermodel underwear picture.
No, it's him in Sharks
Why-
jersey. Sorry, buddy.
Why are you trying to get hot goalies and not good goalies, Alex?
Because either or works in hockey.
Because he's secretly a Rangers fan.
You think that
I
Connor-
actually like. I've always liked the Rangers a lot. I have a Rangers jersey,
Yuck.
although the Rangers
Yuck.
jersey was
Ugh.
bought more for a friends themed Thanksgiving, and obviously,
Sure,
if
for
you're
a
gonna have to go,
friend.
if you're gonna have to go
No,
buy
he-
something and a
he's
theme is
saying-
friends, you're going
yeah.
to buy the Rangers jersey.
he's saying he was cosplaying as Joey.
Actually, almost everyone
Uh,
wore that jersey at some point in time. Almost.
What,
Uh,
a Rangers jersey?
But yeah. You don't like the Rangers? I have no problem with that.
No.
I've never had an issue with the Rangers whatsoever. Like when they were a retirement home, I thought it was really funny, but I never actually had any issues with them. It's funny because my youngest keeps asking me, because he wants to know who we want to win each series because he's like hardcore in the sports now. And we get to the Rangers Canes and I go, I don't care. Either one is fine. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy with either. And then we get to the Edmonton Vancouver and I go, neither of them. And he's trying to
Stadium
wrap his head around-
collapse, baby.
Yeah, he's trying to wrap his head
Stadium
around.
collapse.
He's trying to wrap his head around it. He's like, wait, so you don't care here and it's good, and you don't care here and it's bad? And I'm like, yeah, that's hockey, guy.
Yeah.
That's how hockey works. All right, let's do this.
Do
We
what?
gotta roast some weenies for
Why,
Celebrini.
why are we podcasting? What happened? What?
Because good fortune has finally farted on the Sharks.
You guys ready?
I was born ready, Alex.
Are you recording?
I've been streaming for a bit.
Okay, well, there you go. All right. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 212. And woo, it's the middle of the summer. Not even summer yet, actually. It's late spring. I don't even know what season it is because I'm so excited. We're doing a special podcast this week because we are so excited about some news, which, let me tell you something. The NHL showed us their balls. And those balls were good. I'm Alex. Here with me, as always, is the Honorable Ben, regretting being on the podcast. What's up, Ben?
Number 3. No, wait.
Yeah, you
What?
can't do that. And
Oh.
of course, you wouldn't have thought, but we chiseled him out of the ice like Captain America, even though he lives in Sweden. It's Colin. What's up, Colin? How you doing?
Hey man, we're in the 18 hours of sunshine phase, and it's nice.
It's
So-
Admiral Sweden.
So yeah, so let's talk. Why are we here? We are here because the Sharks, well, they won what
They
might
won.
actually
They
be-
won.
Hold on,
They
hold
won
on.
something. Oh,
They won might actually both be, depending on where you sit, the most thrilling draft lottery ever or the most boring draft lottery ever because no
Aren't
one
they
really
always
no one really
boring?
moved but no one really moved around. Like it's like one of the
Yeah.
first times that's happened where it's
it's 2010.
stayed so stayed in the order. Great for the Sharks though, obviously, because the Sharks won that draft lottery. Of course, ESPN wanted to drag it out
Woo.
as long as humanly possible, but you can't blame them. They're a sinking ship. They got to get ratings. Sharks win the lottery. This is the first time that they've had a proper number one pick. And not only that, but they have a good one lined up. I want to say hometown hero, even though he only really played for the Junior Sharks for like a season and he barely lived here, just a couple of years. But Malcolm Celebrini likely to be their pick. When they asked Greer, he was like, yeah, yeah, sure. But that's big news for the Sharks because, as you know, in our Season's End podcast, we were talking about how we didn't really have high hopes of winning that lottery. We hoped, but we didn't have high hopes.
Number 3.
Right. Has been through at number 3. And the Sharks did it. So the Sharks got number 1. And unfortunately, if there's an unfortunate out of there, it's a minor unfortunate. They didn't move up with that 14th pick anywhere. But the Sharks do have the first pick and the 14th pick. Now, this draft, not quite as deep as the last draft. Last draft was pretty bizarro there. And a couple of things that I think are worth just pointing out. I know it sounds like a downer, but let's get it out of the way first. Just temper some expectations. As good as Celebrini looks to be, and as good as Will Smith looks to be, you have to remember that the defense is still terrible. And it's
Jesus,
not like
Alex.
it's not like, well, no, but here's the thing, right? And this is actually something that I want to kind of point out, right? Because the term generational talent is being used and abused lately, where any elite or good player going into a draft is being hailed as a generational player. Macklin Celebrini looks to be a franchise player, absolutely. Will Smith looks to be similar. Generational though is different. So hold on. So the only thing I'm saying is the Sharks fans right now have a lot to look forward to. And that's the great thing about winning this draft. It puts them in a great position to accelerate the rebuild. It gives them a great 1-2 punch, all the things that you're going to read in the media. The flip, though, is do not magically. I had someone reach out to me literally the other day, man, going, I'm thinking about getting the NHL package so I can watch the Sharks win the Cup next year. And I said, slow that train down, because realistically, the Sharks are, it's going to take a year or two.
Who are these people who reach out to you, Alex?
Well, no, here's the thing. A lot of people got, again, because they read generational talent, right? So they assume that Celebrini is going to be McDavid or Gretzky or Crosby, which maybe, but that's not exactly where he's put currently. And it takes more than one player in most situations to go. And I think that's the difference there, right? If you have McDavid can drag the corpse of almost any team and win games almost single-handedly. In fact, pretty much single-handedly. We've seen him do that plenty. The Sharks still have built, they're still in the rebuild. They still have stuff that they need to address in order to get the team in that position. Does this mean that the Sharks are likely to turn things around and make a push for the playoffs sooner rather than later? Sure, absolutely. And are the Sharks in a great position? Yeah, you get Musty up there, and assuming Musty translates to the NHL, which it looks like he will, getting Celebrini probably, if he wasn't coming up already, probably accelerates Will Smith and gives Will Smith something to consider. And the Sharks have a lot of other players, Bordeleau, Eklund, that are a lot of fun. You have Granlund. So like the forward core all of a sudden looks a lot more fun and a lot more appealing. Get the right coach in, assuming that coach wants to actually play any of those players. But again, it's not like we get Celebrini and next year we are a cup contender either.
No, Connor Bedard just played on the second worst team in the league for a full year, guys. So
right.
Let me maybe try to set the stage a little bit more clear for Sharks fans who are confused as to what this means for us in terms of what Celebrini is. So, Alex, you're absolutely right. Like, you can't be sure that any player is going to turn out to be what they look like. But when we talk about Celebrini, he is a step better than Will Smith, like a full step.
Yes.
He is. And he performed at his age very similarly to Connor Bedard and Connor McDavid did at that age. So what we're talking about is a guy who, if he develops in the same way, which these players have a higher chance of doing, he's got the, probably the same possible ceiling, right? Like there's no guarantees. You have to, get these guys in, you've got to coach them, you've got to let them, harness their talent and blah, 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 blah. But like, Will Smith is going to be a great player. He's a guy who looks like he's going to be like a Marian Hossa type, right, at the NHL level.
Yeah.
Well,
what we're getting.
Celebrini is a full step better. In other words, the production that Will Smith had in his draft year is the production that Celebrini had in his pre-draft year, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I know that people get, are like, how come there are so many generational players all of a sudden that, people talk of them as generational, like Bedard and McDavid. And I don't know, I've seen Jack Hughes thrown into that and, Mishkov, who I think actually probably will actually be that. But this is not like a down year for a number one pick. That's the thing I want to say is like, if you're looking for a guy who could be, and not with like qualifications, like, well, he has to learn certain things. This kid's amazing. And I think we're going to be very happy to have him. And like Will Smith is going to be great. I'm serious when I say like we have not just won the lottery, we've done it in a good year. Should we have done it last year?
Well, no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. But here's the thing, right? And I was thinking about this the other day because what we're going to get in Celebrini, assuming they don't do something stupid and they actually draft him because there is still time to screw that up, is we are getting a ready-made captain with an incredible work ethic, extremely high skill, both in terms of passing, reading and scoring and reading the ice. And we're going to be able to pair him again, not necessarily on the same line, just depending on the coach, but with Will Smith. I actually think if you were going to win one, I actually think we did this in the correct order, not that it was intentional. Because last year, while it sucked not to get one of those, one of those higher picks, they are extremely good. What we actually got was Will Smith, who we
and
but I'm taking Musty out for a second in terms of finishing high, right? Mm-hmm. The Sharks won the draft lottery last year. There isn't a really a Will Smith this year because last year's draft was so incredibly stacked in that top 10. This year there's a drop off, and if you look, you actually see this very clearly with scouts. Depending on how much you read or listen to scouts, is there is no real consensus on who to go for the next couple of picks because they're not quite as strong in, again, as prospects as last year. So we got Smith last year, which was a terrific pickup, all things considered. And then by winning this year, we got a Celebrini. And again, like you're going to hear this 1-2 punch thing. You're going to hear this Taze comparison, all this stuff. It's because now the Sharks, by netting these two players in particular, means that they're pretty much set on those first two lines down the middle, at least. Yeah. And, first of all, I want to point something out because I know one of these crazy fans, Ben, asked me, but fairly, because there's some smoke going around the press, depending on who you listen to about, well, they may go back to, which I think is bullshit. But here's the thing: is Will Smith coming up this year, do I think he was going to? I think it was fairly likely, but it's teetering, right? A little bit, maybe 50-50 shot. Celebrini coming in, let me tell you something. I don't care whether or not Will Smith wants to win at the college level. For the guy that was supposed to be the franchise lead, and then you have Celebrini coming, who's also a BU rival there.
Yeah.
That there's no way that guy's not coming up if Celebrini's coming up. Like zero chance in my mind of that happening.
But that's if Celebrini comes up.
I mean, I don't think Celebrini is not going to come up personally. That doesn't make sense to me. Now, you can look at it from an eligibility, burn eligibility, blah, 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 blah. Sure. Either way, folks, I'm gonna bring the tempo back up here because this is fun. This is gonna be fun for the Sharks. Yeah. Hopefully we get the right coach in place. That's obviously a big X factor. Hopefully that coach is someone who is willing to play the youth. And either way, regardless of whether or not the Sharks become a playoff team next year, which I don't, it depends. Again, coach youth really makes a big difference here, and whether or not that youth, excels. I'm not banking on it, but either way, one, it's going to be fun. Again, we haven't had fun in a while, and two, we're kind of out of the purgatory phase with Celebrini, and the lottery, and that's the difference. Is you could look at last year and you could go, well, yeah, Will Smith, yes, again, still very high on Will Smith, but the Sharks were still trying to figure out their direction and still needed but now it's pretty clear that they're on a trajectory, which is great. Yeah, you got to get those defensive contracts out of there and fix that defensive end because that is going to hold the team back. But bright future with all of this.
I do wonder if that's an argument though for tapping the brakes a little bit on this coming year. And I don't want it. Yeah. So to me there are two best case scenarios for next year. Best case scenario, fun time. is Celebrini and Smith both go pro, and we get them in, and we maybe get Musty, maybe get Makhmudulin, and start to try to build the future team right now. And I don't think that would be bad for either of those guys, and I think it would be good for the fans. And if I'm Mike Grier, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to convince those two guys to give up their eligibility and come in and play immediately. Now, from their perspective, I don't know that going pro next year is the right call for either of them. And I'll be honest, I also don't know if it's the best thing for the Sharks, because this defense is terrible, and I don't think you fix it in 1 year, first of all.
Well, you know what you do at the draft? You jump up and down and go, I have defense for any pick you want. Any pick you want. Free for picks. Okay. Free for picks.
We'll give you the last pick in the draft for, I don't know, fucking Kyle Burrows.
Take it.
No, nobody's trading for those guys. They're that bad. But my point being, like, if those two guys spend another year in college, it's probably not terrible for their development. I mean, one is 18, one is 17. It's going to be their age, 18 and age 19 years next year. That's fine. And also, like, that means the Sharks will be bad again. And it wouldn't be a terrible thing to be shitty for shitty and save those guys from being here when it's shitty for one more year. That said, I'm full on like team fun. I want those guys to come in. I want there to be excitement. I want there to be a reason for people to go to the tank. I want to see, I think that accelerates. Hockey. Yeah, I think that accelerates them trying some of the other youth. I think that it makes it more likely that Musty breaks camp with the team and Makhmudulin gets his shot, and they move aside from some of these shit players with Luke Cunnin as captain. But
you're impatient. You're impatient like the rest of us. It's been listen. It's been like 5 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I gotta be honest with you. You see that Vegas Stanley Cup commercial, and I know a lot of Sharks fans are like, ha ha ha. I look at that and I'm like sad. Not because the Sharks, not because it isn't fun for the Sharks there, but because that was like pretty much the last time. You know what I mean? So, and like I have two young boys, right? And they, my oldest is 10 and my youngest is 8. So my oldest vaguely remembers the Sharks going to the Stanley Cup, but they don't really know the Sharks is good. In fact, they're actually larger Barracuda fans because the Sharks have been such a mess for so long. So, for me, I'm ready for the excitement. If it knocks off a year, okay. But again, my hope, a lot of this really comes down to this coaching hire. That's going to be absolutely critical here, because if they pop in a coach who is going to be playing these pylons and not willing to, then I would say then stay the F down. You know what I mean? But I'm really hoping that Greer is really looking at this and doing this smarter this time around. And I know they say they don't have a timetable for it, and I get it, fine. Yes, they're interviewing the assistants. Of course, they're going to do that. None of that's really news. But it is critical that they find a coach who is willing to play the youth, who understands how to develop talent, who understands how to adapt systems. And it's tough to find that, but I'm on team excitement.
Well, there's also just the fact that this entire this roster is epically bad, historically bad,
Historically
now that
bad,
we've
yeah.
got the record. And so there's a comparison with Celebrating and Taves, right? I just had to go and remind myself of the team that the Chicago Blackhawks drafted Taves into. It's essentially the roster they won with. The era, you have to be so completely bad in this modern league that it's almost like you have no foundation. Any sort of quality, any sort of point gain that your team gets is going to hold you back from the hopefully amazing draft we get to have this year.
Yeah.
And so we're not, Tays and then 6 years in a cup away. We are one more really good draft after we hopefully have a good draft this time. And then maybe 4 to 6 years.
I think you make a good point there, Colin, because the thing about, I actually think Celebrini is more of the Kane guy, even though he's drafted second in this case. Remember, Taves was not a top 2 pick. Taves was mid round, wasn't he? And they had been building for years. I think the better comparison here for a rebuild is potentially Crosby, Malkin, because they got those guys 1 and 2, I think, in 2 years in a row, right? And that was a shit team, and it took a while still for that team to then move forward to the cup. And the reason for that is, if you are picking first or fourth, you have as you say, you have an epically bad team. I don't.
And you need 4 lines. Again, that's the other thing too.
And
you really
defense.
Need 4. Yeah, right.
Defense and goaltending. Let's face it, Swayman carried Boston into the second round.
Yeah, so I mean, you look at
if he goes further.
You look at the Sharks. You look at the potential Sharks next season. Let's say on the upside, the upside is you have probably 3 good but inexperienced forward lines, right? For NHL level, you have a crap defense, and then you have league average goaltending. Now, again, those forward lines, they can swing either way. We have no idea, right? One thing just to note is, are we advocating throwing those kids in? Yes, we are. We do that on this podcast. Do we also acknowledge that may be rough for them? Yes, we also do. but our belief is give them the opportunity. But to your point, the Sharks aren't there, and the defense is such a big, horrible black hole that you can have Blackwood be league average and then stand on his head for nights, which we saw last year, and it's not really going to matter, and it's going to affect the forward core as well. The good news, though, is the Sharks have a lot of picks in this draft, and the Sharks can do quite a bit in this draft. So not only do they have that 14th, but they can move around if they need to. They can maybe package those defensemen. There's ways that there's things that Greer can do to get out of that situation to some extent. Doesn't mean he's going to be able to backfill it well right away, but it's entirely plausible that he makes room for at least Mook to come up. So you have Mook and Thrun there, right? There's bits and pieces, but they are still, as exciting as Celebrini is, again, and it's awesome. The Sharks are not necessarily in a position to be good. I will say, though, Ben, that I have, after really following some of these guys last season, even the ones that aren't up, like Musty and Smith, I do have faith that if all these guys come up and if they have the right coach, that they can be a fairly decent, building team versus a god awful one that is
Yeah.
coming up.
Well, so of the competitive teams right now, the teams who are cup contenders, I feel we are in the situation that Florida was in when they drafted Barkov. And like, because they were terrible, and they had to like trade for a goalie. Like Knight, I think they drafted, but Knight's not gonna do much. And like it kind of makes me scared because it took Florida like 10 years to be good after Barkov, and now they're great and they're amazing. They're just fantastic to watch. But I'm dearly hoping that we rebound a little bit faster. But it feels comparable.
Well, I
so-
think-
I think the
I
Sharks.
think that's Alex's point, though,
Yeah,
right?
like,
Like, if you want this team to rebound faster, what you need to do is you need to get these guys in,
Yes.
and playing and focus on the youth, and don't spend so much time playing, never gonna be's.
Yep. Yep.
I Go ahead,
Celebrini
sorry,
is such a good. So I was just say, Celebrini is such a good prospect right now that again, you can look at this and you can go, well, they added one player, guys. Like and last year you were saying longer, but the thing is that like with Celebrini in, and if you spread that out and those guys do come up, you now have another line. You have another line. You got to remember a couple of things here. First of all, you're going to have Zetterlund back, right?
Yep.
You're going to have Eklund.
Yep.
I got to be honest with you guys. I love Bordelot. I don't know what's going to happen with that guy. Wouldn't shock to see him stupidly moved. But either
He's
way,
getting traded.
Shut the.
you may have. You remember, you've got Granlund, right? And then depends on who you believe. Couture seems to think he'll come back. So you have an aging Couture. Like you got it, and it seems like 90% of our roster is now centers, but you have good enough pieces down the middle, specifically, again, in theory, assuming that, Smith and Celebrini come in and translate very quickly. You are in a decent position to play competitive hockey, again, knowing that it would almost be better to not ice anyone on defense at all. But like,
Well-
you know what I would do, guys? I'd go 5 forwards. I'd just go 5 forwards. Put Couture on D because we know he likes to block shots.
He can't move, Alex.
Yeah, even better.
No. Couture needs to stay. Like, okay, you bring up Couture. I actually had a couple questions, but we'll do the Couture thing. I want him. I would like Couture to find a very nice, comfortable place to be that isn't San Jose. Like, just
Well, that's not going to happen. So he's either
well, I don't think-
he's either going to be LTIR,
That's-
retire,
which
or
is the same thing.
or he'll try to come back.
Yep.
Go
thing.
go back to Ontario and hang out at your cottage year round, and
Yep.
recognize that you're not coming back from this for the benefit of the Sharks.
You don't think he's pumped to come back now that Celebrini's coming in?
no.
I mean,
Couture
wha-
needs to hang up the cape, because like the one thing I don't want to see with this team is Couture's "fuck you guys, I'll do it myself" thing. Like
Yeah.
the one beautiful moment of being like a spark plug for the team, being something for the team, required Pavelski to get his head drummed off of the ice and bleeding, and the amazing comeback that is fantastic. That's one is Couture's singular contribution to being a positive leader on the Sharks. He did it. It's done. He can leave now.
I think, to be honest, like, I don't know that he makes the team better. A, B, that cap relief would be great. C, like, if you're going to bring, both Celebrini and Smith in, and again, this is like the one scenario. Look, if those guys are going to stay in college, then sure, Couture, come waddle your way back onto the ice and see what you can do. I don't care. But in a world where you've got Granlund already as a center, you've got please let them pass.
Let me.
Carmen.
I think.
But-
I think. Sorry to interrupt. I think if he's healthy, I do think he makes them better. But I also think that he's in the way.
That's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
if those two guys come in, then what is he? Your fourth line center? you've Granlund number 1,
Oh,
Celebrini
it's
number
so
2,
cute.
Smith
You
number
think any
3.
coach is going to make him a fourth line center?
Well, that's what I'm
Well,
saying, right? And
yeah,
if they
right.
don't make him a fourth line center, then they're making a mistake.
Yeah.
So it's
And-
better if he's not here.
Hired like this team is as we said previous podcasts. This is what full burn it down looks like, including culture. Like,
Yeah.
there is nothing to carry forward with this roster. So whatever identity and culture begins to be built, whenever
Mhm.
Celebrini comes in,
Yeah.
is going to be fresh and new to this roster. And I'm sorry, but Couture is not the culture I want to
Agreed.
see be carried
He
forward.
never
by-
should have been captain. I've fucking
Agreed.
said this
Totally
for,
agreed.
for years that
And
was
I
the wrong
agreed with you.
choice. I know you guys do. And there are people out there who are absolutely Couture truthers, and I don't understand. Because you're
Because they
right.
see
Like,
themselves as superheroes, and Couture plays like he's the superhero,
Right.
and it's like, nah, dude, it's a team game. Come on.
Well, but I don't view Couture not as a team player, and Couture steps it up in the playoffs for sure. I don't have a problem with Couture as a player. I think for me, I'm just ready to move on in general from
Yeah.
the same Sharks core we've had, and I'm not saying that as a slight to him or his game. I think his injury is unfortunate. I think that may be a crap way, assuming he ends his career. It's a crap way to end a career. It's sad. I liked him on the Sharks. I didn't want him as a captain, right? So I think that's the distinction there. And I would much rather he not well-meaning or not. He's going to be if he comes back and he can play, it is going to be way too tempting for the organization and their new coach to constantly play him, to play him probably higher than they ought to be playing him, to play him ahead of the youth, and probably to keep him there as captain. Whereas what I actually think is better, given the age of a lot of the players on the team, is like, look, I have nothing against this concept of veteran leadership. I don't think you need to overstack your team with it. But, we talked at the end of the season podcast of like, hey, Pavs wins a cup, decides he's not going to retire. Would you sign him for season? Yeah, for his leadership specifically, because we know how amazing he is with that. But
your coach. Play your coach.
Yeah, but otherwise, like there's also a large part of me that says, hey, that's cool. Like, I like having Granlund. He seems to set up the kids well and all that stuff. Duclair seemed to be great. That's cool. But I actually really want that new core to be the ones that are running the ship, even if they're going to struggle at first, because it's time for a new era. And that's what Celebrini offers. That's what Will Smith offers. That's what Quentin Musty offers. We were hoping Eklund was going to be at the forefront of that. It doesn't seem like he will. That's not a bad thing, because we have the other pieces so that he doesn't have to be, and he could just be really effing good.
But I'm ready to turn on. To be clear here, folks, I mean, he is currently developing better than Timo Meier did.
Yeah. I know.
Right. So we're talking about a guy who will be a star.
Yes.
And probably was never going to be, just because of where he was drafted 8th overall. He was never going to be Connor McDavid. But you don't need everybody to be Connor McDavid, right?
No.
Right. Having a borderline superstar who's just really fucking good is fine, right? And a winger who can pass is also great, because because they're going to have to be passing through Cunnin to whoever's on the other side of the ice.
The only reason I framed that the way I framed it was because in the Sharks fan hopetum, if you look at the timeline, right, the reaction that we have towards Celebrini now is very similar to the way that everyone was feeling and hoping, with Eklund obviously being a later pick and not necessarily, this is pre-Celebrini, right? Yeah. So like Eklund was going to be, Eklund or Hurdle was going to be the captain maybe, and then Eklund was going to be the future, and then it was going to be Eklund Bordeleau, and now, and then literally last year it was no, Will Smith, and no, Celebrini. But the thing is that all those pieces are really good. They're going to play well together. I'll tell you what, if you want to see some fun, if you really want to get hyped, so we know how creative Eklund can be. We know how creative Bordeleau can be. Go watch Smith in college. He's a setup guy. Mm-hmm. Really creative. And then go watch Celebrini. Extremely creative. So if, again, they have a coach that's going to play him and let him off the chain, man, You could have Celebrini eventually feeding. I mean, it's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
It can be nuts.
But okay, so I think you sort of set me up because you mentioned Granlund, you mentioned just sort of the potential that we have with this new core that we all hope to be forming. The Sharks are coming out of this draft with ridiculous cap space. And if Greer takes a blowtorch to the roster, it's just like, hey, your contract's up. That's nice. Clean up, be out by 6. Like,
I mean, look, he's not.
I worry if the team's going to hit the cap floor. So what to do with all that cap
Oh,
space?
I wouldn't worry about that at all. Look, we know he's up. There's no way in hell the organization's bringing back LeBanc. Sorry, LeBanc. Clearly, you're
Womp womp.
Quinn or not. Like they're not going to bring back Hoffman. They're not going to bring back Barabanov. I think Greer. Greer understands for the most part here. I think where he's going to blow it, if he's blowing anything, is with the RFA situation potentially. Again, that's where you look at Luke Cunnin, right? But the Sharks do have a lot coming off the cap. They'll be unless they're stupid with it, they'll be in an even better position technically next year. There are players that they can pick up, and because this is not necessarily a cup year, the Sharks do have the ability to get a couple of free agents that are fairly decent. They can overspend if they need, or they can take on salary technically if they need for another year. Like, they are in a good spot. My only hope is that they don't do what they did 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Which was immediately fill all that cap with dead weight. And dead weight that was on 2 or 3 year contracts.
So we're talking about you need leaders, you need people who can just help the core find an identity, know what it takes to win in this league. And we've said, bring back Paz as player coach.
Yeah,
but I mean, consider one, Toronto is looking to make some changes, and we all saw what happened with Tampa. I'm just saying we could have Pavelski, Stamkos, and Tavares just to teach these boys how to play.
So here's the one thing that I think would be. So here's the one area where I get a little nervous with the free agency stuff is when you look at the makeup of Celebrini and you look at the makeup of Smith. These two are leaders. They're leaders. So, I'm not really worried about I'm not really worried about those two guys needing someone to come in and show them how to win at the NHL level or any of that. I think those two guys are going to figure it out just fine. What I don't want to see happen is us start to pull all those players in, and then you start to clog areas where we still need other players to be developing. So, for example, let's say you pull in Stamkos, right? Cool. Thumbs up for me. I don't mind. You start pulling in 3 or 4 of those guys. Now you're eating roster space because, again, and I want to be real cautious about that because much like Ben has been saying nonstop for forever, I think the guys that we are going to have in, I don't want to see them buried in the CUDA. I don't have faith in their coaching at all. I don't think they're developing very well personally. And I like watching CUDA games, like going to CUDA. It has nothing to do with that. I want guys up. I want them getting experience. I don't want them getting blown out or crushed or their spirits hurt. But you know what? Honestly, with the types of players that we have, if you take Celebrini and you put him in and he has a bad night, I guarantee you that kid is going to work his ass off in practice that week and come back stronger the next week. Because again, that is the makeup of the type of player that he is. That's his entire ethos, is his work ethic.
I think I don't think Colin or I disagree with you at all. Really, the big question is, does Greer overvalue that grindy veteran player and think that somehow this team needs one for each line, right? Because the with Celebrini and Smith, if whether they come up this year or come up in 2 years, you're set down the middle, right? So the real question is which of these guys ends up playing wing and with whom, right? So we get back to the stuff we liked to talk about prior to 5 years ago, of like the pairings, right? The center and the wing that kind of end up being like anchors to each other, in a good way, not in a Luke Cunnin anchor way. And then you can swap in whatever winger on a night-to-night basis you're trying to either fire up or what have you, right? Who become the pairs, right? Is it like an Eklund and Smith, Musty and Celebrini, and then who's playing on the other wing? And then, you know, with that overload of centers, what do you do with Sturm? You know, what do you do?
Straight
God.
to jail.
I mean, look, if you look at the roster, to me, the guys who should still be on the team next year are Granlund. I guess we keep Costin since he's not UFA or whatever. He was fine.
Yeah.
Zetterlund was great, and I think will
Mhm.
be the veteran sort of scoring guy for this team going forward. Zadina's an RFA. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Sharks not tender him.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd also wouldn't be shocked to see them, you know, keep him around. But he's got arbitration rights, which makes that situation, you know, the type of one that, you know, teams tend to try to avoid by just not tendering them.
Yeah. Graf is likely going down.
Yeah. You think Graf goes down?
I think Graf goes down. Yeah.
I don't care one way or the other.
Listen. And it's not, that's not what necessarily what I would do. But again, you have if Celebrini and Smith come up, and because they have holes that they're going to look to plug with UFA, there's no way they're not going to bring UFAs in given the space they have. I think that's where I get concerned. I think guys like Graf. Now, I'm not saying they're expendable, but I think they're going to look at it and go, "Let's give you time in the A."
Look,
because
would I rather have Musty up than Graf? Yes. Would I rather have Gushin up than Graf? Yes. So if he's standing in the way of either of those players, then get him the fuck out. That's how I feel about Graf.
I also don't see the Sharks rolling with a fourth line that has a player like Graf on it. Again, it depends on the coach, right? The coach is going to make, again, it makes a huge difference.
It does depend on the coach. I suspect a Greer selected coach and a Greer built roster has a grindy fourth line.
I agree.
Which is wrong, and you shouldn't do it, but you know, that's the way things are.
Or an old school, not like grindy focus, but very, you know, the old school energy line. You know, big guys who can skate fast.
Well, I think he's also going to be very tempted because you are so some of these players are small. Some of them are smaller players. They are younger players. I think it would be pretty odd just watching how Greer operates so far for him not to want to pick up someone to air quote protect some of those players.
Well, he doesn't need to pick somebody up. He's got Luke Cunnin who has been volunteering for that.
He's got Giovanni Smith who
Giovanni Smith is clearly that guy.
By the way, you know, Giovanni Smith, that guy's actually kind of good at hockey. So yes, keep him, play him.
I like his positioning. He seems to always be in a useful spot, at least on the offensive
He's what
side.
the team thinks Justin Bailey is.
Yeah, that's a really good assessment. Yeah,
like he is. I don't know why he fell out of favor with either the coaches or whatever. I don't remember. I don't think
he was ever in favor. I don't think he was ever in
favor.
Really,
he played quite a bit in the first month and then disappeared from the roster until basically.
Well, let's see what happened in the first month.
All I'm saying is lots of players were there in the first month who didn't get fucked like Giovanni Smith. Okay,
yeah, I know.
But
so
this
anyway.
is also outside.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you talk about, like, if you want an energy guy who gives his all and can fight, if you value that for some stupid reason, then I'd much rather have Giovanni Smith 2 years younger than Justin Bailey doing that. The only thing Justin Bailey does in any way, shape, or form is he skates in a straight line very quickly. Whereas Smith actually gives you a little bit more that you can actually see, not just on the ice, but in the underlying numbers.
He's such a low cap hit too.
And like he's 26, you know, he's kind of a perfect fourth liner. I would keep him. I know you listeners at home
you're not gonna get rid of him unless you trade him because
he could be a guy you drop through waivers. Like, are you worried somebody's gonna pull him off of waivers? No.
You never know. Like, there might be somebody else.
Would we be sad if he was pulled off of waivers? No. So anyway, it's like no risk, no loss. Sorry, let me just finish my thought. And then I think that, you know, of the guys at the A, Gushin has to be up next year. What more? He cannot do more at the AHL level, and he can't grow anymore at the AHL level. And then you've got, Musty. Sure, you could. I think he can't play in the A next year. I think he'd have to go back to junior, whatever. I'd rather see him on the team and start to develop alongside these guys. But the team's going to make the decision they make. They also gave themselves a problem with this Edstrom kid, right? Like he's going to be 20. Is he grinding away at the AHL level for the Sharks, or are they going to give him a shot at that fourth C? Right? Like, I don't know.
The problem with Gushin has the same problem Bordeleau has. I think he's too small for Greer's Sharks.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about Smith, technically.
Giovanni? No,
No,
Smith.
Will.
Oh,
Yeah.
Will Smith.
He's
Oh,
not
but
a big
that's
player.
well. I thought Smith was like just
He's
at
6'0".
Yeah, like to me, that's the red line is 6 foot, and like Gushin and Bordy are both under that line. It's why I would be surprised if Bordeleau isn't packaged with the Penguins draft pick, because it just
You really want to see that pick move? It's not going to happen, guys.
I didn't say it was
I
going to
just
happen.
based on what I don't know what Greer does with Bordeleau. I just don't think he skates them on the Sharks if he can find.
I don't think. Here's my 2 cents. I've struggled to figure out whether or not the Sharks actually know what they have with him, because when they pop him up, he starts off. He usually has like an electric game or two, and he looks really good. But for whatever reason, they seem slow to have him stick. Now under Quinn and Greer, the last 2 years, they made it very clear that they wanted players to work and earn it, air quote. And that meant basically the young guys like short leash, go down, fight really hard, get really hungry from being stuck in the AHL, and then come up and see what happens. Now, I'm not going to give them credit on any of that working that way, because I think a guy like Bordeleau, again, having gone to a lot of CUDA games, look, he's creative. Is he sometimes a little irresponsible with it? Sure, but he's also young. He's 22, right? So it's going to happen. You got to give him experience. But I don't know that the organization has really made up their mind on him or what he is. And it's pretty fascinating that you don't really see them talking about him much at all.
Yep.
I mean, why would you? He's in an ideal world, he's your third line center.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't talk about third line centers, and I wouldn't expect them.
We talk about Luke Kunin a shitload, don't we?
Well, that's because that guy's a leader and he's going to be captain.
Stop it.
Can I point out one thing, or I guess ask this question, because I'm just looking at the LTIR right now, right? And obviously, Cooley is an unrestricted free agent. Blackwood's there, but they traded for Vanacek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vanacek's coming up. Yeah, that's going to eat cap space. He'll be the second goalie.
Sure. Is there a question?
Okay. No. It's just that, I've noticed a lot of people talking about cap space, and the only person on LTIR that they seem to note maybe creating cap stuff is Logan Couture. Vanacek's $3.4 million. It's not nothing. It's not a ton. Not as bad as Couture or like Vlasic, but there are other players that may be coming off the IR, or like Benning, unless they move Benning. You know what I mean? You do have some cap space getting filled, and again, you bring in UFAs, so there's a couple of things to watch.
So speaking of cap and financial shenanigans, did Vlasic earn himself another playing season?
I mean, it's called a modified.
We have a
he's not going.
No, but we have a buyout slot opening up.
Oh God. I mean, they're not going to buy him out at this point, right? Like, why would you?
Well, here's the question, and I'm probably going to completely screw this up, which is weird because I'm usually so on top of the difference between no movement and no trade clauses. But it's shifted to a modified no trade, right?
Yeah.
So no trade and no movement are different, right? So that may be opening him up for eligibility to be sent down, or bandied about on waivers. Not that I think that they're necessarily going to do that. I don't really see them. I don't necessarily think they think that like Vlasic is what Vlasic was. I don't think they're stupid, but I don't necessarily think that they view him in the type of light that would push him elsewhere, unless it was via.
He's not the worst player on that defense.
No, he's not
by any stretch of the imagination.
That's true. That hurts, but that's true.
And there, I think at this point, actually, his $7 million contract is a benefit to the Sharks just for that cap floor reason.
Cap floor, yeah.
So if I'm talking about clearing out dead weight from the defense, like it's
Ruda.
Ruda and Burrows, letting McDonald walk. It's Benning's probably coming back, and I don't have strong feelings about that as long as he's not like, he's not holding McMillan down, for example, because they're different headness.
Package Ferraro with that 14, baby.
There you go. Now that I could get behind.
That would be,
but you'd have to move down.
I don't think that. I think they view Mario Ferraro entirely too highly.
I agree.
So let me point out the only thing. So I want this to be a proper coach search, a real coach search. I want them to find the right person. I will say this: the only bummer about that potentially taking a while and going up until closer to camp, let's just say, right? Because they made it clear that they're not really racing to get one before draft. Is it would be nice to have a coach come in, be able to evaluate, and then talk to Grier and go, these are my guys. These are not going to be my guys.
They're repeating the mistake they made with Quinn in the first place, which was hiring him too late.
Yes.
Right? Like, not that Quinn, it turns out, did anything with his knowledge of the players, but one of the things I think we identified as a challenge in that first year is that Quinn never got a chance to come in and actually like sit with who are these guys and how do I actually, put them together as useful players.
I mean, Grier either, really. He kind of came in right before right on the draft.
Fair. Right. And I think to that point, neither of them was in good shape, but with the coach, that's a problem for 82 games. Like with the GM, you're not having to also deal with that piece. You can now, you can sit back and say, okay, so I can watch this stuff. I can figure out what I want to do. Whereas the coach is like, what? Right. Like it's a different problem.
I mean, there wouldn't really be a scenario where they're going to be able to sit down, let's say they grab Keefe or they grab someone, whoever, it doesn't really matter. It does matter, but just for this example, they obviously aren't going to have dealt with the players before the draft or anything like that in any real meaningful way. So they're still going to want to do a camp and evaluation. But it would be nice to be in the position to have someone come in and go, look, this is the style I want to play.
Yeah.
Based off of what I know, I'm not sure these players fit.
Yes.
So if you have an opportunity or if you are looking for one here, and by the way, I guarantee you that those coaches will have a short list of players that they would at least like you to look at or go after.
Yeah. I mean, to the point though, also like that's a process that you can't immediately come in and be like, I don't like these guys. You have to sit down and watch, tape.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have to sit down with the scouts. You have to sit down with, your whoever might be sticking around as among the assistant coaches and start to actually like player by player go through and look and say, okay, ideally a coach doesn't come in with a system, by the way, right? Ideally a coach comes in and says, I'd like to run something kind of like this, but I'm going to adjust it to fit the players that I'm given.
Right.
Yeah.
With the caveat being also that, hey, could you get me, players like this, right?
Yeah. I want to progress to this system at a point.
Yes.
Is my goal.
Yeah. And I think the earlier you get a coach in, the better set you are for that process. The sooner it will conclude, the sooner you and the GM can get on the same page about which players will be in the A and which ones will be up, and actually start to build development plans for these guys, right? Anyway, I know.
Yeah, that's the one that's the area where I haven't really been clear on too, is the development plan to an extent.
And I would be perfectly happy with Keefe or Woodcroft. Like both have had to coach young superstar, or in one case generational, maybe both cases generational. We'll see what
Matthews
does with the rest of his career.
No, Austin, Matthews and McDavid are very close in
terms of just what we'll be saying when we look back on their career. But like both of them have that experience. Both of them have been winning successful, if unfortunately not the win. And I was listening to something the other day where it was noting how coaches who sort of get fired out of positions tend to be the ones who come back with the next team and do really well. I'm like, oh, I could have some of that.
I mean, I'm torn, right? Like we have decried in the past the recycling of bad coaches that has affected the Sharks to an extent. or suboptimal coaches, at least, like guys who don't really move the needle. I don't. Keefe worries me a little bit, but I also the GM situation there was real shitty this year. And he was never handed the right closing pieces, at the trade deadline.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear here, though. When you actually look at the what he's had, he's been outplayed, and he's been outcoached in those series. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I just got to point out that he has been outcoached.
I haven't paid enough attention to know whether he did get outcoached or not. I will take your word for it. I just don't know. What I would say is that I think there probably are other guys out there we don't even know are available, would be better coaches. Would I be sad with Keefe? Probably eventually. Would I be sad with Woodcroft? Probably eventually. I just don't know.
They'll have expiration dates on it. But I think here's the thing. What you're looking for. So this is the thing that bothered me by the end about Quinn.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily Quinn. It was that Quinn clearly didn't learn from his prior mistakes. Yeah. So if you have a guy like Keefe coming, Keefe was getting outcoached in the playoffs specifically. He was getting outcoached, less so during the regular season, I think. But if he learns from that experience and comes back, great. You need to fail to be able to proceed sometimes. That's okay.
Yeah, no, totally.
But again, when you look at Quinn seemed to not have learned any of the lessons that he should have learned when he was with the Rangers. That's what I found so odd was when it was again, he seems to manage the game very differently when he's dealing with the youth level than the pro level. And he kind of just did the same things that he did the first time around. So, someone pointed out something which I thought was great the other day, which is just something to remember. The Sharks have made it very clear they're not going to pull a first-time coach, period. I'm talking about someone with no coaching experience, right? And Greer said that he wants someone with NHL experience specifically, whether that's a player or coach, he hasn't really specified. But either way, almost any coach that you are going to get, you have two options. You are either hiring someone away from something, or someone was let go and they're available. Those are going to be your two options there. So, will they grab a new or unproven coach? I don't know. Will they lure a coach away? I don't think so. Not right now. Will they? So that leaves people who were let go in their previous job, whether it was their fault or a really crappy GM or roster composition. I actually think I wouldn't be shocked to see Keefe get yanked towards Pittsburgh or somewhere else.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
But look, at the end of the day, for us, I just want, to your point, Ben, I want what we had, what I don't feel like we've had ever, really.
Yeah.
Which is maybe Sutter-ish, but someone who is looking at the pieces. Again, this is why I'm always such a big Trotz fan. Is Trotz would for a long time would get a Pettersson that didn't really have anything, and he would work with what he had and get him to punch above his weight. Whereas let's take McClellan or DeBoer, two coaches who I don't really have a lot against, but those were guys who came in, and when they had the pieces that fit their system, McClellan's being the Detroit system, they were great. And the second they didn't, they weren't really able to figure out what to do or change.
Or worse yet is that system that McClellan was running was counterable. And he didn't have an alternative when it was countered, which was what killed us in the playoffs every goddamn time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm looking for a guy who understands how to build team cohesion with the pieces that he has, who understands how to motivate, who understands how to deal specifically with these younger players coming in, preferably who believes in giving youth opportunities and who is realistic about the situation and where they are. I will say this. Is Greer lucky to have gotten this lottery pick? Yeah. Does that change the scenario for him largely? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think again, when you look at his first year, we all kind of said, well, this doesn't seem great, but he also hasn't really had time to do anything. Last season, it was a little bit like, but now with Celebrini, all of a sudden the skies are looking a lot clearer, and it really does depend. You're really going to find out who Greer really is, I think, this offseason and how he backfills with these UFA positions or whether he does or doesn't, and the coach pick that he does this time. He seems to learn, which is good, but we need a coach who understands the situation and who is either on the same page or who they have a good enough relationship with each other, not pre-based relationship. I don't need to just pull friends, where they can talk and go, I know you think it's here. I think it's here. Or I think if we want to get there, we need this, and to have it be open. Because I do think that if they bring someone in and they're just sort of like, I never got the impression from Quinn on this roster that Quinn was really making much in the way of like roster decisions up and down that strongly. It seemed to me like he was someone on the, same Bugner, someone who was on the bench. You would, give them the players and they'd be like, oh, all right.
Well, but I mean, there is still the possibility that Quinn did exactly what was asked of him, and then he was ejected because Greer got the heat for the historic bad team label being stamped across the team.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I would.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
to move on to more fun things, I think, Alex, you've just convinced me to cheer for the Rangers in the hopes that Brindamore gets shown the door.
Brindamore sucks. We do not want
What?
Brindamore.
No,
He's
I like
terrible.
Brindamore.
He's terrible.
Why?
You want to talk about a guy who gets out coached when it matters? He got out coached, last year.
Boy, you know what coaching I loved, and I showed it I woke the boys up and showed it to them was the Colorado Dallas game where Colorado was storming back. It was a game 2. They're storming back, and then they took a bad penalty, with like 3 minutes left. And so what's the first thing they do? Pull their goalie, keep it 5-on-5, try to keep the momentum going. And I saw that immediately, and I was like, we haven't had a coach that would do that would think that way at all.
So you want Patrick Waugh?
I want a coach who coaches to the players he has and to the game at hand. That's what I'm looking for. And I think the key, which Ben, I think is the biggest thing, most important thing, is I want a coach who can identify and communicate clear development plans and expectations for these younger guys. Because if we have a coach who cannot do that, I don't think the kids are going to develop in the way we need them. They need to understand what is being asked of them and what they're being built toward. And then, and then they need to actually be given the opportunities to do that. So the organization has to follow through with whatever they commit to those players. You do this, we'll put you in. Thumbs up.
I think even more so, I'd love to be able to tell what this fucking system is that is being run on the ice.
We don't know anymore.
Well, with Quinn,
Man.
no. But what I'm saying is, did we ever know what Quinn was doing on the defensive side?
No, it made no sense.
He either didn't have a workable system, or the players wouldn't conform to it. Both of which are terrible things.
I think it was a latter, to be honest.
I probably, because you've got fucking Mario Ferraro who freelances 95% of his time on the ice. So, but that's a coaching problem, right?
Yep.
Like, anyway.
Yeah, and yeah, I thought Quinn was, before this season. I mistakenly built the superstition that Quinn was trying to keep lines consistent to build some chemistry between players and whatever, and then there's issues with line changes and just deployment and matchups, and then over time it's just like, oh wait, no, I'm not seeing any ideas formulate, to the point where it's like you almost want to just see the DeBoer line blender happen, just some action.
Well, I mean, that's been the trend really since DeBoer started to take a nosedive. Is the Sharks, the system hasn't been clear, and the coaches either haven't been able to figure out how to adjust, or their solution for trying to adjust is just throwing shit at a wall, but then not even really consistently there. So again, we should start wrapping this podcast up here. It's awesome that we got Celebrini. It's terrific for the franchise. It puts us on a terrific trajectory. We do have cap space this year, so there's a lot of opportunity to do things. It'll be interesting to see what they do. It does all. I'm going to sneeze. Great for the podcast, but it does all. A lot of what you need to be looking for. If you're looking for anything in the offseason right now, the biggest thing, these are the 3 things I would say you're looking for in order. 1, coach. 2, draft picks. 3, UFA. And the UFA and draft picks, I think, are pretty outside of Celebrini. I think are reasonably close because, you can really screw things up by making the wrong decisions in the UFA market this year if you're tempted for the wrong reasons. But the Sharks, they won the lottery. They're going to get their guy. They're going to have the prospect pool has turned around. There's a lot of opportunity. The team has to use it. That's something that we haven't quite seen them do to the extent that we would like to see them do. So again, hopefully the coach influences that a bit more. But Sharks are in a good spot. I know 3 stars of the week, which is a little weird because not a lot of Shark stuff going on. But in your mind, you can make them the balls. They showed us the balls. I know. Let's change it because 3 stars is actually hard. No, how about this? Let's do 3 stars in general in hockey for this time period because the playoffs have been going on. And if you're not watching the playoffs, man, playoffs are fun and they're always fun. But these are fun. Who wants to go?
I mean, these playoffs are kind of tame compared to the last couple of years, I feel. But all right, I'll go.
Let me just give my first. I'll give my first star.
Yeah.
My first
Okay,
star is to Sam Bennett for hurting Brad Marchand. Because
damn you!
fuck that guy.
I was gonna. I mean, fuck both those guys, but
I mean, yes, but fuck the little ball of hate specifically.
Oh wait, can I point one more thing out that I thought was pretty funny this last week?
Sure.
For a team that really hasn't shown a lot of support for the Sharks in their history, I found it really amusing that the Warriors called the press conference to literally just talk about the Sharks. But no, I know, and that's awesome. And I actually don't really have anything against the Warriors at all. I've just never seen a team call a press conference to talk about another team in another sport the entire time. It was so weird to me. I was like, "What's this press conference doing?" Oh, okay, great.
So, all right, I'll go. So Ben, you took my star. So
Get wrecked.
my third star goes to Edmonton, who suddenly decided that Vander Kane's shitty style of filthy play is what they're gonna do now. And seeing McDavid high stick slash somebody in the face was just so weird. And I think it's hilarious that Edmonton is just bringing the filth on Vancouver. My second star is gonna go to Vegas for just falling out of the playoffs, and my first star is going to Vegas's first round pick next year, and we can all just pray for Vegas to completely fucking implode. And then we can just have two drafts of drafting in the top 15 twice. Come on, let's go.
I'm going to give my third star to the Dallas Stars for knocking out the Vegas Golden Knights specifically. I'm going to give my second star to Rick Celebrini because I have been watching a lot. I did watch that press conference and I have been, and I know who it was, but, just hearing him talk about the way that he set Macklin up for this success, I think is awesome. And I think that's good. That's a large part of why Macklin is going to be awesome for us. And then my first star, well, I think it's pretty obvious. It's to everything and everyone that just suddenly gave us the number 1 pick and the lottery and not the odds. I'm not giving credit to the odds people. Sorry, Quinn. Whatever stars aligned to ensure that we won that. Because I'll tell you what, when it got down to 3, I was real effing nervous. And when it got down to 2, I was really, really effing nervous. Yeah. And when they flipped it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this actually happened. I really wasn't counting on it.
We had the benefit of not being Chicago, and therefore everybody was cheering for us.
My wife came from across the house because I was literally yelling in joy. She was like, what happened? And,
oh, yeah. I called my wife and I was screaming. I was like, yeah.
I was that excited because this is franchise altering. It is, and it accelerates the rebuild. If not, maybe doesn't move it faster, but it certainly levels it up. What?
I was just thinking about what Thornton said if he had scored 5 goals in a game.
Four.
4 goals in a game, and just considering that Celebrini is our new Thornton.
I was wondering if you were going to say that GMMG whipped it out and
I found it pretty hilarious again. Like immediately, you want to talk about a guy that really has a good poker face. Greer is sitting there watching him. You know, you knew he was nervous, but he wasn't really showing it. And then when he won, he turned and shook hands, but he was, you know, wasn't even really smiling. And then when they interviewed him immediately afterwards, he was just like, you know, do you think you're going to pick Celebrini? And it was like yeah, you know, I would think so.
he would. There are. I mean, I don't think he's going to galaxy brain this. He was very clear that they're talking to Celebrini.
Yeah,
Celebrini's the target, and he should be. I mean, Demidov looks really good. I think my worst case scenario in this draft was falling to third, which is why I was so reverse psychologying it by doing number 3 all the time.
Credit, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I would have been fine with Demidov, though Celebrini's the preference.
Yes,
but you know that fall off after 2 is it's a real cliff. Unlike, as you say, last year where Jesus at 4th, we were able to get a guy who would have gone number 2 in a lot of years, and maybe even number 1 in a lot of years.
Yeah.
So to that point, my 3 stars, besides number 1 going to Sam Bennett, is my second star goes to our future 1C Celebrini. My third star goes to our future 2C, good old Will Smith. So,
fair.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, that concludes this offseason podcast. Probably swing back around come post draft time, unless there's like a coaching hire or something else to talk about. So you can have a little bit of vacation from us screaming and yelling. You can check us out on the web at circlingthecup.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on the Apple Podcast app, or you can rate it 5 stars, baby. You can also, Android people, work it out or go to Spotify. Of course, we've got Ben on the Twitters. I'm not calling it X at Circling the Cup, but it's mostly Ben. We do check things on Facebook. No one's writing us questions because I think that demographic is not our demographic anymore. That's great because I can't remember my login half the time anyway, but we do check it out. And I think that's it. The Sharks have no games, folks. There's no games for the Sharks. We are just watching the coaching hire and the draft at this point in unrestricted free agency, which is in July. So that concludes this week's podcast. We got Celebrini, boys. Say bye-bye.
Well, not yet, but we could.
Why you a pox on you?
Look, I don't know how to deal with unalloyed good Sharks news, okay? So this is just who I am.
Yeah, we know who we pod with. Bye-bye. All right, that was fun. I gotta go feed the kids.
All right.
We should sign Stamkos, and on the condition that Stamkos brings Cooper.
Like a kidnapping?
Sure. I mean, if he'll coach under duress, then sure.
I mean, I don't think Cooper's going to get fired or anything. Anyway,
he's not. He's won multiple cups. He's bulletproof. All right.